The duct tape stretched across my front door like a spider web of pettiness. Layer after layer, crisscrossed and overlapping, sealing me inside my own home. Right in the center, taped over the mess, was a bright pink HOA violation notice. I yanked at the door handle, feeling the resistance of what must have been an entire roll of tape. Most people would have been furious. Me. I actually smiled. Because today, Patricia Summers, the self-proclaimed queen of the Oakwood Heights HOA, had just made the biggest mistake of her petty little life. I pulled out my phone and started recording, documenting every strip of tape, every angle of this bizarre imprisonment. The notice claimed my home was temporarily uninhabitable due to unauthorized renovations, and that I was prohibited from entering or exiting until proper permits were obtained. The irony was delicious. Patricia had no idea who she was dealing with. No idea at all. 3 weeks earlier, I had moved into this quiet suburban paradise, keeping to myself while I fixed up the place. The previous owner had left it in decent shape, but I wanted to make some improvements. Nothing major, just some landscaping, fresh paint on the shutters, and a new mailbox. I worked quietly, usually in the evenings after my day job, trying not to disturb anyone. That's when I first encountered Patricia Summers. She appeared at my property line on my third day, clipboard in hand, oversized sunglasses perched on her bottle blonde hair despite the cloudy weather. She introduced herself as the HOA president with a kind of tone that suggested I should bow in her presence. Apparently, my work van parked in my own driveway was an eyesore that violated subsection 12.3 of the community guidelines. I explained politely that I needed the van for work and would be happy to review the guidelines. She huffed and informed me that ignorance of the rules was no excuse. Then she started critiquing my choice of mulch color and the placement of my new shrubs. According to her, they were 2 inches too close to the sidewalk. I thanked her for the information and said I would look into it. What I didn't tell her was that I had already reviewed every single HOA document before purchasing the home, and I knew for a fact that neither my van nor my shrubs violated any actual rules. The harassment started small. Daily walks past my house with that clipboard, photographing everything. Violation notices for grass that was supposedly 1/4 inch too tall. Complaints that my porch light was too bright, then too dim when I changed the bulb. She even filed a formal complaint about the color of my garden hose, claiming it clashed with the neighborhood aesthetic. Each time, I responded politely, documenting everything, biding my time. The escalation was gradual but relentless. Patricia began filming me whenever I stepped outside, narrating my activities into her phone like some demented nature documentary. Resident at 423 Maple Drive is mowing his lawn at 6:45 p.m., she would announce loudly. This is clearly disturbing the peace during family dinner hours. Never mind that 6:45 was perfectly reasonable and well within any noise ordinance. She recruited her minions, a group of bored retirees who had nothing better to do than patrol the neighborhood looking for infractions. They would cluster at the end of my driveway, whispering and pointing, taking pictures of my trash cans if they were out 5 minutes past the designated retrieval time. One of them, Harold something or other, actually measured the height of my mailbox with a tape measure and triumphantly declared it was 1/2 inch too high. Then came the letters. Official HOA letterhead, threatening fines and legal action if I didn't immediately repaint my shutters from unauthorized navy to approved midnight blue. The fact that these were essentially the same color didn't matter to Patricia. She wanted submission, not compliance. She wanted me to know who was in charge. The letters piled up, each more ridiculous than the last. Fines for wind chimes that were too musical. Violations for a welcome mat that was the wrong shade of brown. Citations for having too many flowers in my flower bed. I continued to document everything, scanning each letter, saving every email, recording her increasingly unhinged behavior. My professional training had taught me patience and thoroughness. You don't rush an investigation. You build your case methodically, gathering evidence, waiting for the perfect moment. Patricia was digging her own grave, and I was happy to let her keep shoveling. The final straw came on a Tuesday morning. I had taken a rare day off to finish some interior painting. Around 10 a.m., I heard activity at my front door. Through the peephole, I watched in amazement as Patricia, accompanied by 2 of her cronies, began wrapping duct tape around my door frame. They worked with the efficiency of people who had done this before, layer after layer, ensuring I couldn't open the door without significant effort. Patricia stood back to admire their handiwork, then ceremoniously slapped the pink notice in the center. She took several photos, probably for her twisted HOA scrapbook, then marched away with her followers trailing behind like ducklings. I let them leave, then tried the door. Sealed tight. They had literally taped me inside my own home. Most people would have called 911 immediately. But I had a better idea. I made my way to the back door, which they had apparently forgotten about in their zealousness, and circled around to document their handiwork from the outside. The tape job was extensive, probably 3 full rolls worth. The notice was barely legible through the plastic sleeve they'd used, but I could make out references to unauthorized renovations and safety concerns. This was perfect. Absolutely perfect. Back inside, I opened my laptop and began typing my report. As a state-certified housing inspector with the Department of Community Affairs, I had jurisdiction over all residential properties in the county, including HOA common areas and board member homes. Patricia had just committed false imprisonment of a government official in the course of his duties. That was a felony. But I wasn't going to stop there. Oh no, Patricia had opened a door she really should have left closed. I pulled up the public records database and started my research. Patricia's property at 157 Oak Street came up immediately. No permits pulled in the last 10 years, despite aerial photos showing a clearly newer addition on the back of the house. Interesting. I dug deeper. The HOA's business license had expired 6 months ago. Their liability insurance had lapsed. They were operating illegally. Even more interesting. The financial records, all public information for incorporated HOAs, told a fascinating story. Thousands in dues collected, but where was it going? Not to the common area maintenance, judging by the state of the playground. Not to the promised security patrols that existed only in the newsletter. The more I dug, the more irregularities I found. Patricia had been signing checks to a landscaping company owned by her brother-in-law. A management company that shared an address with her vacation home. This wasn't just petty tyranny. This was fraud. I compiled my findings into a comprehensive report, attached the evidence of my illegal confinement, and sent it to my supervisor with a request for emergency inspection authority. The response came within an hour. Not only was I authorized to conduct a full investigation, but the state attorney's office was very interested in the financial irregularities. They would be sending their own team. The next morning, I arrived at Patricia's house at exactly 8 a.m., accompanied by 2 fellow inspectors and a sheriff's deputy. The look on her face when she opened the door was priceless. Confusion, then recognition, then dawning horror as I presented my credentials and the inspection warrant. "Good morning, Ms. Summers," I said pleasantly. "I'm with the State Housing Authority. We're here to conduct a compliance inspection of your property and the HOA offices." She tried to protest, claimed she needed to call her lawyer, demanded to see additional documentation. The deputy calmly explained that obstruction would result in immediate arrest. Patricia's face went from red to white as I began my walkthrough, digital recorder in hand, noting violations allowed for the official record. Unpermitted addition, approximately 400 square feet. Electrical work not to code. Is that aluminum wiring? That was banned in 1972. The list grew with each room. Mold in the crawlspace. Illegal plumbing modifications. A deck built without permits that was already showing signs of structural failure. The coup de grace was her home office, where she kept the HOA records. Financial documents that clearly showed embezzlement. Receipts for personal expenses paid with HOA funds. A laptop with emails discussing how to force out homeowners who didn't fit the community standard. By noon, Patricia's house was wrapped in violation notices, not unlike how she'd wrapped my door in tape. The fines totaled over $40,000, with criminal charges pending. But we weren't done. The HOA office was next, located in what was supposed to be a community center but had been converted into Patricia's personal kingdom. More violations. More evidence of financial crimes. The state attorney's investigators were having a field day. Patricia tried to rally the board members, calling an emergency meeting. But when they arrived to find state officials carrying out boxes of documents and computers, most of them suddenly remembered urgent appointments elsewhere. Only Harold stayed, but that was just to throw Patricia under the bus, claiming he had always suspected something was wrong, but she had intimidated him into silence. The emergency HOA meeting that evening was standing room only. Word had spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Patricia sat at the board table, but her usual throne-like chair had been replaced with a standard folding chair. I stood in the back, just another concerned homeowner. The state attorney's representative laid out the findings. Financial malfeasance, abuse of power, operating without proper licenses. The list went on for 20 minutes. When it came time for the vote of no confidence, it was unanimous. Even Harold voted against her. Patricia's reign was over. As the gavel came down, she stood up, shaking with rage, and pointed at me. "This is all his fault," she shrieked. "He's been plotting against me since he moved in. He's a plant. A spy." The room fell silent. I stepped forward, showed my credentials to the crowd, and calmly explained that I had moved here legitimately, bought my house like anyone else, and only revealed my profession after being illegally confined in my home. The murmurs of support from the crowd seemed to deflate Patricia entirely. She sank back into her chair as the county prosecutor stood to announce the criminal charges. "Patricia Summers," he said, reading from his document, "you are charged with false imprisonment, embezzlement, fraud, and operating an unlicensed business. Additionally, you face civil penalties totaling $200,000 for various housing violations and safety infractions." Patricia's jaw dropped. $200,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. I want my lawyer," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The prosecutor nodded and informed her she would receive formal summons within 72 hours. As for the false imprisonment charge, that alone carried a potential 5-year prison sentence. Patricia's face went gray as the reality sank in. 5 years.